Juliet all night, talking about the love power. People with people love power. You ought to let me love shine. Let it shine, let it shine. Talking about that thing, yeah. Gotta put a little pep in your step. Talking about that thing, yeah. And once you got it deep down, you won't need no help. Talking about that good old feeling that gets way down in your bones. I'm talking about that good old love. That once you got it, you can't leave it alone. No, you can't leave love alone. No. You can't leave that love alone. No. Talking about that love. 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 Talking about that. Love power, talking about love power, talking about love power, talking about love power. Come on, put your hands together. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. All right. Yeah. Oh, let me tell you about this love power. Talking about that love power. Let me tell you about the love power. Got to tell you about this love power. Talking about the thing, yeah. Have you walk in the street late at night? Talking about the thing, yeah. That sometimes make wrongs right. Talking about that good old feeling that when it's gone causes nations to fight. Oh, talking about that thing called love that kept Romeo after Juliet all night. Talking about the love power. People with people love power. You ought to let me love might shine. Let it shine, let it shine. Talking about that thing, yeah. Gotta put a little pep in your step. Talking about that thing, yeah. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I want to welcome everyone that's coming on to this platform, tonight's show, Metaphor of Love. Are we listening? I'm your host, Jabril Rashad. This is episode 43, and tonight we are talking about vulnerability. Vulnerability, and I wanted to ask the question earlier, do vulnerability means love? Do vulnerability means love? Vulnerability is the ability to expose yourself to a certain weakness, and when it comes to men, and oftentimes we find ourselves being challenged by the opposite sex when we're talking about vulnerability. So I wanted to cover this evening on this platform because this topic has come up on many occasions in conversations about men not being able to show their weakness when it comes to, again, the opposite sex, the females. So we're going to cover this topic this evening. Again, this is episode 43 of Metaphors of Love. I hope that everyone had a wonderful Mother's Day week. To all the mothers that's out there, And I pray and hope that you got what you asked God for. This thing comes around once a year, and we don't want to ever take our mothers for granted. So if you are a mother, congratulations to you, and I hope that you had a wonderful week. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring my co-host on this evening with me, Mr. Tim Jackson, to the stage. Good evening, my brother. Glad to have you on for another week. Absolutely. I know there's a lot of things that we could be doing to both of you and I, but we're choosing to be here instead until we finish this particular episode 43. Tonight, we're going to get into this thing about vulnerability. So I had to make sure that we stay with the format and stay the course.
I appreciate my brother. You always doing a great job.
Tim,
I'm so proud of you.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, I know we're gonna may not even be here all that long, but I want to make sure we stay the course because, like I said, this is the 43rd episode, man, and we got to get to 45 by the time we get to the big event, the party, the kicking off the Memorial Day weekend next Friday with the Metaphor of the Love social podcast party brought to you by Titanium Entertainment, as well as in association with Blac-Vocracy Production. So I wanted to make sure we stay again with the format of what we're doing, because this is a very important topic, man. We're talking about vulnerability because I've heard this before, and I recall when I first heard it, Tim. I guess I had been in my early 20s, maybe mid-20s, early 20s, and I heard this term being used or directed in my direction when a person made the statement that I don't show my vulnerability. And I remember thinking to myself, what the heck is vulnerability, And so I've had to, over the years, of course, I understand it more now than when I was in my youthful days, so to speak. But I had to take a look at it, man. And because you're still hearing this question come up in different conversations about vulnerability. So we're talking about vulnerability this evening because, the definitions I stated earlier is to be in a position to show a certain weakness, right? And women sometimes often like to see men show a little bit more of this. But men, on the other hand, we don't like to be relegated to a weak position. That's just the truth of the matter. We don't like to be relegated to a weak position. So we have to always be mindful of that, man, because, depending on how people are trying to play the situation, they can take your, as they say, your weakness for what? Your kindness. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things, man, that we we don't like when we're trying to be transparent by showing this vulnerability, right? And then have somebody come along and take it for granted, and then they start using it against you later on while they snickering behind the scenes. So again, we're talking about this evening on Metaphors of Love while we listening. Do vulnerability, does it mean love? Because some women will argue the point and say, yes, it shows a man's position that he cares, or is in association with an individual who's supposed to care a little bit more. So I come to you and get your about it, because I kind of stated on the outset what the definition is, and just trying to make sense of it, because we want to always make sure we keep the balance when we're in these conversations with the opposite sex. But what do you think about that, though, Tim? Is vulnerability the means to love?
Well, it's a reason why, and I'll answer that question in just a second. I want to mention that there's a reason why most people, and especially men, don't want to be in a vulnerable state, because we've learned through a lot of times through sports and athletics, for an example, that being in a vulnerable state makes us a possibility of losing. And men don't like to lose. We learn actually, we need to win. We need to achieve. So we know, and everybody tells us that, you got to work towards winning. I mean, winning the next position if you're working for somebody in a job, right? Getting a project done. You got to win at that project. And so a lot of times to be vulnerable to a position, so like you're in wrestling, you put yourself, they start off wrestling, one person's in a vulnerable position. And so that person works really hard to get away from under that vulnerable position in wrestling. You know, they have one guy right on top of him. He's what's called, he's in a vulnerable position. Right from the start, one guy has an advantage, right? And so we work hard to change that positioning,
right,
so that we can then be at advantage and be in a strong position. And so our character, even if you don't play sports, you watch sports and you see those type of things, you know, especially as men, of trying to make sure we're in a position that actually we can lift and we can stand strong. What do women want from us? They want protection. So in that, it's hard to actually change our mindset to be in a vulnerable position. But I will say this, being in a vulnerable position says, I trust you. And then if somebody breaks that trust, that's really hurtful when a man gets hurt, when he puts himself in a vulnerable position, and then that person breaks that. That's breaking trust. And so does it mean love? Yeah, it probably means love, but it's just a component. It doesn't necessarily mean you should be in a partnership, because we are vulnerable with our friends. Men are vulnerable with men a lot of times. People don't understand that. A lot of men are vulnerable with men because, especially when they trust them, because they know that man will protect them and look after them and won't do anything to harm him in that position. So men can cry together. Men will do things together to actually show vulnerability and its strength. We understand the strength at times, but we still know that actually people can take advantage of us. Like you said, you know, take my kindness for weakness and take advantage of us during those moments and then come back and start to do it. And we've all seen where actually, you know, you got the nail and they just keep hammering you with the same stuff over and over, hitting the same spot over and over again. And that wears a man out. Pretty soon, the head is gone because she done nailed it into the wall. The head gone. Ain't no head there no more. That head got to go somewhere else where actually he can see himself again. He can't even look in the mirror because he got nailed in the head so often. So a man doesn't want to be in that position where he nailed into the wall and he loses his position of strength. That's all I want to say. That's so much, man. I tell you. So you know, love is a strong thing, you know, and that's why we got to be in a position of trust where we bind together. If I'm going to show this, I mean, we're gonna be weak together and we're gonna be strong together. And don't be hitting me over the head with my weakness.
Right, makes sense.
You know. I'll say this part real quick. When we manifest things, what do we manifest? What do we put our mind and attention to? If you keep hammering with what I'm weak at, now I'm thinking about what I'm weak at, and I may be starting thinking about what you're weak at. That's what people do. Both ways. They kind of come back and forth on each other. They start finding each other weaknesses, and then the focus on the relationship is about weaknesses, and it's not about their strengths. The things that actually brought them together, the things that make their chemistry real strong, the things that makes their love bond. Focus on the right things, and you'll have a stronger relationship.
Focus on the right thing, you have a stronger relationship. You know, you said something a second ago that was very interesting because it made me think about. I don't know if you had a chance to see the last best man, you know, with Neil Long and Morris Chestnut and Taye Diggs and all of them. But you know, in the end, or towards the end anyway, because you talked about when men bond, men have a, you know, especially if he trusts another brother with, you know, he could be vulnerable with another brother because he don't want to show the weak side to a woman. And in that movie, you know, I love the part, man. I love the fact that how when him and Sanaa Lathan was breaking up and he was in the house by himself, his boys came over, didn't even really say a word. You know, they started setting the table up, man, setting the you know, they been ready to play poker, whatever the case may be, and they put the Earth, Wind and Fire song on, man, and you know, Mars look up and say, hey, man, we need one more player. So, you know, when you said that, my mind quickly, man, instantly went right to that. Because that's what we do. You know what I'm saying? We say, man, I got to go holler at my boys, holler at my partners, whatever the case may be. For whatever reason, we lose that trust to come to that female, to come to that woman for whatever reason. And I think a lot of times, I guess for lack of a better word, we don't want to show that weakness to our women, but we'll go to our partners. You know what I'm saying? Or our partners can sense something's going on, and they're gonna come out there, man, and you know, and exercise that olive branch to us the way they did in the movie, man. So when you said that, my mind quickly went to that, man, because I thought that was powerful. I wished I would have went on. I would have played that part of it. That was powerful.
That was powerful, and it reminds me of some moments as well too. And one of the things about it is, we're not saying that women don't do that as well. They don't come together. We're not saying that. We're just kind of giving you a little light on men. Men do this. And that also that in the midst of doing that sometimes, and why, even Jabril mentioning, hey, that means that woman has either one or two things. She hasn't got that trust from that man, or she broken that trust by when he did that, she hammered him on the head again. She hammered that nail right into that wall until, he felt like, boom, I can't be vulnerable with her because she hurts me when I do. And that's hard. That's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, very, very. I mean, but it goes to show what, again, when I was asked that question, and for those of you who are just coming on to Facebook Live, I haven't went live on Instagram just yet, but I'm about to in just a second. I just want to make sure I get my Facebook associates on here first and foremost, because like I said, we started on this platform, so I'll be going live in just a second. But I want to just recap what we're talking about this evening on episode 43. Does vulnerability, this word vulnerability, the capability of showing or exposing your weaknesses, so to speak, does that mean love? I mean, and maybe women would have a better answer to that. This may be something I may even bring up next week, right, in front of the live audience when we're talking about it. Because for me, as I explained earlier, when I first, became aware of this term, it totally just like went over my head, because I'm saying to myself, I'm not showing, I'm about 19, 20 years old, so it didn't resonate. Or this vulnerability, because we're taught to, as boys from a very young age, get up and be tough, don't cry, suck it up, and especially if you're playing sports, you know what I mean? So this word went right over my head, man. It went right over my head. And then years later, as I had an opportunity to reflect upon this word and contemplate on this word, I came to the conclusion of rational thinking that it's not a bad word if you're not going to the extreme. Basically, I think what most women would like to see is that kind of like that sensitive side or that maturation side to you, or from an individual, from a man, to show that caring side, that he has that pampering side. But when you're young, man, you can't really relate to that. You don't really connect with that. At least I didn't. Because again, when I was asked that question, it went over my head. I'm like, vulnerability? What you talking about vulnerability? No, my dad was my dad and my grandfather was military guys. They didn't, you sucked it up. So I wanted to have a conversation regarding that, man, because I think that is what's just one. I'm just gonna say just one of the things, or one of the ingredients that's behind divorces. When divorces are being filed, because I don't think women feel like, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, just chat it out. I don't think they feel as though a lot of men, on a lot of occasions, don't show their vulnerability. But there's a reason why. But you say what, Tim?
Yeah, I was thinking about something, man. You brought up something. Sometimes just in the smallest way. I remember my energy is really positive, right? And so most people see that, and they see that all the time, because I'm that way almost all my life. And because I was brought up that way, my parents and stuff like that. So that's who I am. And so I've seen when I was in a relationship once, and the person say, "Are you ever mad or what's called, beyond a moment?" Meaning that I don't sit in it, right? And I was looking at them, I was like, huh?
Right.
And then they kind of look at me like I'm, being perfect or fake or something like that. And I'm like, no. I said, I have my moments and times and stuff like that. I just get back out of it because I want you to smile, and I like to smile too. And it's in my heart. I'm going to do what I have to in it, and I'm going to feel it for that moment, but I'm going to get out of it. So sometimes women try, those who are, with the wrong energy will fight to get that pain out of it, that vulnerability. And they'll hit that, like I said, they'll hit that hammer on that nail over and over again until, because they're trying to find what makes him get into that place. And when I remember when I first started, my reaction was I was handling really well. And so then they say, you don't care, right? You don't care about me because you ain't angry, you ain't getting all toxic. In other words, the words we use now. Back then it was anger. And so I didn't. And then the next part came about was that so they kept pushing until I got that, and they weren't even talking about anger. They just like you're not reacting to it. So And then I got frustrated. That's what I got. What happened to me? I got frustrated because you keep trying to do things that just, not in my best interest, not in yours either, because it's frustrating me and thinking this is not going to work. So that's my mindset. I'm like, why would somebody do this? Who does it? My enemies don't even do this. A man on the street ain't gonna do this to me. Why are you doing this to me? So, that opens eyes. I guess it's a learning tool. You have to learn the discernment that I had to learn through relationships of what's for you, what's healthy for you, right? And that how long can you wait for somebody to actually change their mind on that, or do you stay in it? How long you stay in that situation before you get out, right? And so I think both male and female can attest to being in a situation where it's like, whoa, this person's doing this over again. Is this something where they're trying to find my vulnerability, trying to connect? Or this is the situation where they're trying to harm or hurt me over and over again because of their own pain, and they're deflecting their pain towards you, right? And I've seen it many times and you can kind of know if you listen to people, because they'll tell you their problems and stuff like that. And what they want to do is know that you have problems too. And that so you can feel as vulnerable as they do. A lot of women want to do that. They want to know what your pains are, so you can feel as vulnerable as them. Go ahead.
Right. It's feeling as vulnerable as they are. Okay, get it, because I think we always talk about the woman having that emotional makeup, but then like Tara, she chatted out. And just for a second, for those of you all who are just joining, we just went live on Instagram. We're live on Facebook, so I want to welcome everybody on Instagram to this new platform. If you haven't been on this platform, it's called Metaphors of Love. Are we listening? Where we go in and break down the R&B classic songs, the metaphors as it relates to our daily life. And today we're talking about, does vulnerability means love? This is episode 43. Does vulnerability means love? Underline the word vulnerability, because I've heard far too often that men do not show enough vulnerability. Not that they don't show it at all, but they don't show enough of it. So my audience here on Facebook, which we just started with Instagram IG probably about a little over a month ago. So it's the reason why you'll see me going back and forth IG. But I want to welcome you all aboard. I see my guy, man. What's up, Dex? Thank you for joining us this evening, my brother. So Tara, she stated that it has nothing to do with a lack of trust. That was number one. And if a man wasn't taught, I want to make sure I get it right. If a man wasn't taught vulnerability, then it's going to be hard for him. Basic is what she's saying. So my chat to her was simply, but can a man change if he's never been taught? You can't, if he don't know something, you can't expect for an individual to act upon what it is that they do not know, right? So I'm just trying to get it correct for the younger generation, the youth, because we constantly seeing. I just saw Instagram today where a guy was not being vulnerable. In fact, he was more or less like, get out of my car, that kind of thing, making those kind of statements. So, he wasn't showing this young female any kind of vulnerability. So we're trying to see, does vulnerability, if he shows that, will that put him in a weak position, ladies? I mean, will that make him in your eyes? I'm not asking the brothers on this. I'm asking the females about this. In your eyes, because maybe that's one of the reasons why guys don't want to show their vulnerability a lot of times, because they are looked upon as being some species of weakness. So I want to know, in the women's eyes, if you correlate that with the song, sensitivity, because that's a part of being vulnerable, right? You got to be sensitive toward the other individual. In your eyes, does that define him or place him in a weak position in your eyes? Just check that out for me. If you say that it does, or if you say that it doesn't. I just want to see from the women, what do you all say? Let me see. Let me pull something up right quick on this other. Okay, let's see what we got. Another comment. This is coming in from Miss Emily Sutton. She says vulnerability does not mean love. Does not mean love, but it does indicate a willingness to be open to love. I like that. I can accept that. Doesn't mean love, but it does indicate a willingness to be open to love. Yeah, I could definitely correlate with that, simply because without it, you become like as they say, what's the song that Mario saying? You got an ice box where my heart used to be. You will have a cold heartedness, and there's no way you'll be able to relate to the opposite sex, because you would be desensitized You won't have no emotional attachment. You won't have any type of concern or feelings about, their welfare, so to speak. So yes, I definitely can see that it causes a indication or a willingness to be open to love. But you say what, Tim?
There's levels to this, when you're talking about vulnerability. And so for men, okay, because I'm gonna go back there because we have some women chiming in, and we was kind of, expressing the point of view of men. It actually pertains to women as well, but we're talking about men not being as vulnerable as women. So in that, there's levels to it for men. Men will be a certain amount of vulnerable, especially if they learned. If you're so hard that actually you can't understand a woman's position, then that's a whole nother level. That's pain right there. That's a guy in pain. We're not, me and you, I don't know. I can't, well, let me not speak for you. I don't know what we're talking about, but most time men are vulnerable. It's kind of like an iceberg. You can see the top of it. And if you're from a distance, then you want to know. Women ask questions to you all the time. Okay, what is this? What you like, what you dislike, and stuff like that. And so men go into those things. And in that, men become a little vulnerable by mentioning a few things, because vulnerability is actually, I'm giving you an answer and you may not like it, right? That's a level to that, right? So in that may make us not be good matches. And so men are always trying to win, right? So we ain't trying to lose out before we get started. And so, so there's a vulnerability in that communication, right? And so then as you start off, and then there's a vulnerability that comes in as you start to relate to each other even deeper. Well, that deeper vulnerability is mostly what we mostly talking about, because we talking about once we're in a relationship most of the time, and getting down to those small things that harm and hurt. Because when you casual, most people don't, most people who are healthy, with a healthy mindset, don't get hurt by someone else that doesn't like them or doesn't like that. You can say something and you won't feel that vulnerable to them because you can move on, right? You're not attached yet. And so in that, I don't think this pertains to most men in that particular vernacular. Most men, I'm talking about most in a healthy mindset of a man as well too. We don't get caught up in that. We let something vulnerable come out. We fine, because if you hurt us at that time or whatever, we move forward. Right? It's when you're in a deeper bond of a relationship that vulnerability means something. That usually means we're doing a deeper thing. So that takes trust. That's what trust comes in. See, the trust don't come in the beginning. So she is right. It don't come in the beginning. And that's not the part that hurt men. The part that hurt men is when I trust you and I'm vulnerable. That's why I mention trust. It's not when, everything is casual and you can hurt all you want to. I just move on and no problem, right? That's how most men are. But hurt me when I trust you and I believe in you. I'm trying to uplift you. I want you to be the best you are, and you're not doing the same for me. That's what we're talking about.
Right, definitely. And let me go back to something, because Tara, she chatted. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss. I'm only looking at what she chatted out, but I'm also trying to make sure I don't misinterpret what she's saying, because she stated, stop blaming women for men lacking proper communication skills. I wish I'd have saw that earlier within the context, because I don't know if it was you or myself. I don't think we're playing the blame game. I think the question is being asked regarding vulnerability, because it's that age-old adage that says, is those who know like those who don't, or is the blind like the seeing? Again, I stated, if you know something, then you should act upon that when you know something. But if you don't know it, you won't have the proper response for it, because you don't know it, right? Like in my case, I use my own personal experience. I stated clearly that I remember when I was about 19 or 20, this word came up, right? The first time I kind of heard it, vulnerability. What do you mean vulnerability? So it was one of those words that I didn't relate to, and I disassociated myself really quickly from this word, because I'm an athlete in my mind. I'm like, we're trained, we're trained to go, out on that field and take care of our business, within the time, the 60 minutes that we're allowed to do that, or even if it was in basketball. So it's one of those deals where it just didn't connect. It didn't register me. So I'm like, vulnerability? Nah. And then I learned later on that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was making it out to be. So no, I don't want to make sure we're not blaming any, if a man cannot, and I get what, I guess Tara's, where she's coming from, because a lot of guys, they don't have a lot of depth. Let me put it like that, a lot of depth. And when you don't have a lot of depth to you, you don't know how to fully express yourself. So I guess in the context, that's what she's speaking about. So you have a tendency to put it back on, to kick the can across the street on the woman's side, because you don't know how to articulate or express yourself. But this is why we want to get to the root of it, because I truly believe that for every cause, there's an effect. And vulnerability plays a very big role, a valid role in women or men but in most cases, women filing for divorce. So I think if we can identify with these terms like sensitivity, vulnerability, uh, uh, whatever other words that we can use within the context that can help us as men, I do think that we can kind of segue into a better communication and not have a lack of communication, as Tara so eloquently stated. But she also stated something else too I wanted to get to because let me see here real quick. Oh, she also stated, I had it up a second ago, but I want to read it because I'm getting some women, I mean, it seems like the great majority is saying that no, because she's saying the same thing that no, and I don't believe it means love because she's talking about vulnerability doesn't mean love. It means vulnerability, the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. Okay. So far we're saying that vulnerability don't mean love. IG. Let me see what IG is saying. Let me look over here right quick. If there's anything on IG. So we're talking about this. I hope y'all can see me well on IG. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm going back and forth, looking back and forth. So again, we're talking about vulnerability, episode 43. Does vulnerability means love? Now, I think I'm gonna ask this question next Friday. I'm gonna ask this to a larger group, a larger audience, because again, we need to break this word down to the least common denominator, as I like to say, so that we can learn how to have word association and how it's applicable to us. Because again, some of this terminology is getting by a lot of men because we're not either understanding it or we're not incorporating it into our vocabulary and really kind of learning from it. So I get a lot, especially on subjects like this, just from the women alone, because it helps a lot of individual men who are brought up to be, those tough guys and men don't cry and suck it up, that kind of thing. Okay, so again, so far you all saying that vulnerability does not mean love, but it opens up to the willingness for love. Okay, I can really get with that. But Tim, you say what?
I appreciate Tara's perspective that actually she's being thought provoking and she's thinking about this in a way that sometimes people don't think of, right? What I feel though is that our examples have been saying exactly what she's talking about. Our example has been talking about, except for one little part, because I mentioned trust and I gave an example. When you trust, you're more likely to be vulnerable, right? And so people do that. So it doesn't mean trust, but trust helps, right? So it doesn't mean love, but love helps, right? For you to be vulnerable. And so this is a part of a relationship, a growth of relationship. A healthy relationship is going to have vulnerability in it, right? Because in that, you're going to actually see each other flaws. You're going to see each other positives. You're going to see each other minuses. You're going to see everything that goes on if you're in a long-term relationship. That's what we're trying to build. We're building that unity. So actually, me and you, even though what I was saying, we talking about some of the pre-stuff, right? Some of the stuff that happens, we're starting off and all that kind of stuff when it gets there. But in a healthy relationship, the vulnerability is going to be there. And that person is actually going to cradle and nourish your vulnerability, right? She's either going to help you, she's going to put that aside, that's not something you can help with, or she's going to uplift it to help you actually get stronger in that particular place. That's a helpmate. A man's going to do the same thing because that's in our nature. We listen to women, and then what we do is think about how we can solve a problem. Matter of fact, we have to learn. It's a skill to learn how to listen with always, providing help. Because sometimes women just want you to listen, right? And so, and not give a solution for them. So men, we're always in that mindset. Okay, how can we solve this? How can we make this better? And so what we're saying as well is that, hey, men are thinking about men in this case. So this is what I'm spreading something to women. I need to listen to this part. We're saying that, hey, we're in those states. We would like you to either be listening to us or figuring out a way to uplift us as well. And if you're not thinking of a way to uplift it and make it better, I'm talking about with the same frame of what we're talking about, then quiet is even better, just like you guys want quiet. So I would want to lift you up, make you stronger, or just listen to you so you can get it out so you can become healthier, right? And that's what we want in a healthy relationship. Healthy relationship wants somebody to listen, or just to listen, or they want somebody to help them think of solutions, maybe even think of different ways to look at it, right? Perspectives. But sometimes, right at the beginning of when you first do it, definitely solution is not usually the deal. Usually, listening is the first and most important part, which is a skill of communication. Listening is a skill
Absolutely.
of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We talked about that before about that
Mm-hmm.
listening being an art. It's an art. A lot of people don't want to, they want to talk, but they don't want to really listen. But it is an art. So just for a second, I'm going to pivot back over here to Instagram real quick and welcome Miss Emily Sutton to the stage. Good evening to you, Emily. I'm glad to have you join us on Instagram. I know you're going back and forth too, and you got something to say regarding this particular subject that we're talking about.
Yeah, so just to piggyback on what everybody has been saying about vulnerability, and I did put it in the chat on Instagram. So, like, for example, and I left an example on Facebook as well. Like, we don't, like, when you go to the doctor, you don't necessarily tell you, and you're vulnerable anytime you step into a doctor's office, right? Because something's wrong or you need something. So the same goes with relationships. We're coming to these relationships, whether we want to admit it or not, because we need something. But just like when you get to the doctor's office, you don't necessarily state or discuss everything that you need. You kind of skim around it, you paraphrase, you don't really go into all of that. But it's different situations and scenarios that arise where these vulnerabilities begin to show. So it takes time for some of those vulnerabilities to come out. But where we are now, even in society, if a woman is walking past a man and he's trying to get her attention or approach her and she rejects him, and then he begins to say, oh, well, F you then, you're not that cute anyways. Now he's exposing that he's vulnerable to rejection.
True.
But it was the scenario of him trying to speak to that woman that brought that out. So I think when it comes to being vulnerable, different things have to happen in order for those vulnerabilities to come out. Now, you end up with a situation, person who is willing to be open and transparent with you. I think transparency is an equivalent to vulnerability, because if I'm going to be 100% transparent with you, then that means that I'm willing to give you information about me and what my needs are in a vulnerable way by being transparent about whatever we're talking about or wherever I'm at personally. So those are my thoughts on that. I don't know who can agree there, but I think transparency can be a close equal to vulnerability, because it requires you to be vulnerable in order to be transparent.
That makes sense. Because you're saying your transparency, especially in your truthfulness, that means you have to disclose something maybe even personal about yourself that normally you wouldn't probably divulge. So in order to get to know that person or even to sustain the relationship, you have to be open and vulnerable on certain things. But let me ask this, because I know men, we don't necessarily recover the same when we give our vulnerability and it's shattered, right? We don't recover the same. From your experience, or if you know of anyone experience, what is your thoughts or take on that? Would you say to the guy, just get over it? Or would you say, or will you come and say, like in other words, whatever you share with me or confide in me, I hold that sacred, right? And mean that though, because a lot of times people say that, but then they divulge that information later on. Whatever happened in a relationship, they tell some other person. Now this information is out there. That's what I talk about. Men don't necessarily recover the same because we got so much pride, if you will, right? And I don't mean to be prideful. I'm just talking about the way we're built, because we're built different than women. So, what is your take on that?
Right. So I think we need to. Well, we did have someone here in the chat. They want to know, what the topic is.
Yeah, I just saw it. I'm just
vulnerability. Yeah, he'll come back and address it, Shamika. But I guess the real question is, why does it take men? Why do they recover not as well? Why does it take longer for a man to recover than a woman when there's pain or when there's hurt? what's that? Like what is
I
the
can answer
real
that.
reason men have difficulty recovering from breakup? Why do you have more difficulty moving on or moving forward? So some men, when they have, they're hurt or they have to move on or they feel like their trust has been broken, they immediately go turn to another woman. Meanwhile, a woman may choose to heal through the situation, figure out what went wrong. So I think we need to figure out why. What are the reasons why men are not recovering in the same way as women are, when with the same information and tools available? What is the interpretation?
Well, hold on, Emily. Let me toss that over here to Tim right quick and get him to chat on that. And then after that, Tim, we're gonna segue into the first song. Go ahead.
Okay. There's two parts to that. There's levels to that. One, as I mentioned kind of before, men are raised to actually not show weakness, right? And show their vulnerability. So when men are taught to win, and so any type of loss, especially as it gets more and more serious, men feel it more, because you've seen men at sporting events and things like that. If you've seen a man actually even if he's in a debate team, he doesn't really like losing and stuff like that. So men feel vulnerable to losing. And so when they really care about something, the more they care about it, the more the hurt they feel, because they feel defeated, right? And even if it's their fault, they still feel defeated. If it wasn't even the woman's part, if it was his part, he's going to feel defeated because he actually felt. I'm talking about he cares about the situation. I ain't talking about a guy who don't care. So I am speaking about somebody who cares about being successful in a relationship, even though they might not have the right mindset. They may be, because we're speaking about people who are toxic, because a healthy person, right, gets over these things in a different way, because everybody feels hurt. If you want to win, men gonna hurt regardless, but a healthy will find a healthy way of doing it, because I've seen both men and women turn to somebody else after the relationship broke up. I've seen them both. But but men have a propensity, when they're not healthy, hasn't matured, or actually had the right I say group of people around them, they will turn to something else. But when you're healthy and you have a healthy mindset, you will hurt, you will work it through, and then you'll take your time getting back to another relationship. And so in that, you want to be in a place of healthiness so you can actually provide and want to be in another relationship that's good for you. So, but I would say this to men have to be over, because any man that actually is coming at you on the street and gets angry because you say no, he's not in a healthy position. He needs to work on that, because he shouldn't be angry. He should actually understand that women are going to say no to him at some point, and he shouldn't have to ridicule or say anything mean to a woman just because she told him no and said no. Because I know a lot of men who look for, they know they're going to get a lot of no's. They just keep coming till they get a yes.
Okay, Tim, hold on just a second, because I want to let me segue back over here to Emily, because she wanted to come in, chime in on something that you stated. Go ahead, Emily.
Okay.
Okay, I had to write a note on it, because I didn't want to forget. So Tim is saying that men have a propensity to win, right? But women have that same propensity to win also, which is why you'll have multiple women still vying for one man's attention, and one of them will remain standing. One of them will still continue to do whatever she can to win this man. So we have a propensity to win too. I don't want that to be understated or not put out there either. But while men have a propensity to win, and since we're going with wins and losses and things like that, I will go over into sports, which is something that that's a world I now.
She's going over into sports.
I hear her talking.
Okay. Okay. So this is where I'm gonna go with you, and I'm gonna give you this analogy. So if you're a player on a team, or you're the coach of a team, and your team loses, your team, you as a coach, you as a team, you decide to formulate a game plan for how you're going to win, right? So women do the same thing. But what happens with some men, and it's not all, is that same work ethic that you would have towards a goal that does not have to do with relationships, you don't apply those same metrics. You don't apply that same work ethic to your relationship. Because if you're not winning in something in your relationship, you'll drop it, let it go, take it as a loss, roll off with the hurt. However, if it's something else out here in the world, i.e. a game, or again, you're a coach or you're on a team, or even it's your own child who's having a scenario, you're teaching your child to find a way to win. So wouldn't the same translate over into matters of the heart in a relationship? And why wouldn't that same kind of work ethic or effort go into that? The same way that you're doing it in other areas of your life. If you lose a bid on a contract, you'll figure out and go back to your game plan and restructure what you need to do to go back and win the next bid, or what you did wrong on why you lost that bid. So when we're saying recovery, men can recover, but you're not translating it into all areas of your life. You got matters of the heart over here in a silo, but these are things that you do already on a day-to-day basis in other areas of your life when it comes to wanting to win.
Okay, let me ask you something right quick, because I want to read out something that I think Miss Milk, she's stating. I like the fact that she's confident like that, because she stated that I'm gonna win regardless. I'm gonna win regardless. But I responded, okay, that's cool. Okay, I got you, Miss Milk. But what's your winning formula, and does that only apply to you, or does it apply to the individual whom you seek to be with, right? Because I think, as it is oftentimes said, that the first rule or the first skill to survival is self-preservation. So when we start talking about self-preservation, yeah, it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to win. And then that word is a personal pronoun, I. But when we're dealing with another individual, and I stated earlier, it's tougher for men. And I know that can be kind of vague too when we use the word tougher, right? But the reason why I'm saying it as such is because, again, women has this fragile makeup in the essence. I'm talking about the natural makeup of a woman. I'm not talking about the world who dumps everything on the woman and then she has to develop this tough exterior, right? I'm talking about her internal makeup, how she was really created in her original pattern. That's what I'm speaking to more than anything, right? Men are taught to go out, as it was originally designed, to go out and be the hunter, so to speak. And so along the way, again, we developed that hardness or that tough exterior for so long to when it's, till we tears, you can look at some of the movies and stuff that they put out. When you start talking about the Norwegians and the Vikings and all these people, they had a real tough, hard exterior, right? But now we've come a long way. The advancements are different. Our social peers are different. Things that we've learned over time are different. So I understand there's a lot of, books, knowledge, information, technology on trying to develop us as far as self-help books and stuff like that. So we get all of that. But underneath the hood of all of that, what Tim was speaking about, the natural propensity of certain things, there are certain things that men still have to deal with, and we don't oftentimes recover the same. Yes, I think women, and I'm not saying it's right, so understand what I'm about to say, but women have to have deal with it for such a long time to where y'all kind of gotten used to how to recover. Men, I think we're just trying to learn that. Not to say that it hasn't happened throughout history or throughout time, but if you look at whom it has affected more, I'm saying that the recovery has affected women more. So you all have had practice at this as far as the recovery. That's pretty much what I'm saying. Now, you asked the question, Emily, a second ago in regards to why is it, I want to make sure I interpret what you said correctly. You stated that why is it more difficult for men to get over it than women? Is that what you stated earlier?
Yeah.
Or it seems so. Yeah. And I think Tim kind of addressed that.
That's what Tim said.
Yeah.
Tim said that it's more difficult for men.
And see,
no, I didn't say more difficult. I just gave you what's difficult about for men. So there's a difference when saying more. I never used women when I said more. I never used the word more difficult for men than women. So I did say.
Yeah, I said that we don't recover. I mean, we recover differently. But Tim, go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. And so in that, I was, let me say this, and I want to address that. I want to address the one about when we, for as women being, women having the same strength and, ability to win and stuff like this. When you went into that subject, started talking about, sports and things like this, you got to remember when a man's in a relationship with a woman, and because those different situations, we can get into particulars, and those particulars can make it one way or the other. But a man should have a vision. Okay, he should have a vision of the relationship. And if he's talking to that woman and she doesn't see his vision, he's not going to fight for that when somebody doesn't. So, because we're talking about fighting for, he's not going to fight for that relationship if she doesn't see his vision. If he's working through it and he got some things going through and she doesn't want to see the vision, he is going to move forward. He's going to move on. She has a different vision in him. And it's okay for them to have different vision. They mean they need to go their separate ways. And so a man in that situation is going to move forward. And he usually recovers pretty easily in that particular situation. Even if he cares, that's a healthy man that has a vision. Most men who have a healthy vision usually have a healthy recovery because they understand that actually they have a purpose, they have intent. And so usually they go in there and they usually don't have too much problem. So we're usually talking about somebody who actually either the relationship is not as healthy as they want it to be, or they're not in a healthy state of mind. Because men with a healthy state of mind, they know how to be vulnerable. That's why I said in a healthy relationship, it's going to be a partnership where each person is actually vulnerable. But if we're talking about some of the reasons why people are not vulnerable, and so we have to go into the things that don't make a healthy relationship, we have to go into things that actually we need to do to get to the healthy relationship. And so let's keep that in mind. We're not saying that men or women shouldn't be vulnerable and are not vulnerable. Matter of fact, men should work towards being vulnerable, but they also should work towards being discerning to who be vulnerable with and being vulnerable with the right person. That's what we get into.
Okay, now we're coming up on 30 minutes of this particular show, or coming up on the hour, excuse me, and I got to get into the first song. So this song I'm about to play, I think kind of sets the tempo for what we're talking about this evening on Metaphors of Love, because this is something that we've stopped doing together and trusting each other's vulnerability. So I'm gonna let y'all jive to this song right here.
You know, me and my woman, we've been going through a lot of changes for about 6 months or so. It's been real hard to talk to one another. You know, relationship ain't nothing without communication. How we were laying in bed, the both of us looking at the ceiling overhead, eyes wide open about 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, baby, we can't go on this way. She said, you're right. I said, I know you love me, and I love you. Then we started holding each other. I felt a tear roll down my face. Last night, me and my woman, we cried together. Said we cried together. Ain't nothing wrong with you, no. There ain't nothing wrong with me. We're not the only people in the world who go through ups and downs. All we have to do is talk, we can work it out. Oh, let me kiss your eyes, let me wipe the tears away. Let me hold you tight, tomorrow we'll feel better, 'cause it's a brand new day. Oh, last night, me and my woman, we cried said we cried, we cried together. Oh, now we have times when we laugh harder. We even go out on the town and we party. Every day the sun doesn't shine, sometimes it has to rain. Just like we enjoy the pleasure, we have to stand the pain. Oh, let me kiss your eyes, let me wipe the tears away. Oh, let me hold you close. Let's talk to each other. I wanna hear what you gotta say. Oh, last night, sweet last night, me and my woman, we cried together. Said we and then we made love.
Okay, that's the first song we played. We Cry Together, the classic R&B hit by the OJs. You understand? Because they got them classic hits the way they was writing from the heart. Okay, so that song right there, to me, set the precedence of what we're talking about tonight on this show about crying together. They didn't cry singly, they cried together. And he goes on when he talks about, he says that we did the town together. We laughed together. We shared a lot of things together. And most of all, we cried together. So both parties were showing that vulnerability, which is so important because we don't see that a lot of times today. And in some of the lyrics, let me see, he said, when he starts out, he talks about, me and my woman, we've been going through a lot of changes for about 6 months or so. It's been real hard to talk to one another. A relationship ain't nothing without communication, right? And we talk about that all the time. Vulnerability puts you in that situation when you're being vulnerable. It puts you in a communication type situation. Vulnerability does. But then he goes on and says that he says, I know you love me and I love you. Then we start holding each other. And I felt a tear roll down my face. Now that's him being vulnerable, just through the sensitivity of the touch, because he says that we start to we held one another. And as I said before in another episode we had, no matter how many times we text, no matter how many times we FaceTime, there's nothing like the human touch. It's nothing like it. It's nothing like it. And so he goes on and says, ain't nothing wrong with you. No, there ain't nothing wrong with me. We're not the only people in the world who go through ups and downs. All we have to do is talk. We can work it out. And I'm going to stop right there just on those lyrics because it goes back to communication. And I think that's what we're all talking about this evening. I think Emily mentioned it. Blessings mentioned it. Tara, she mentioned it. Tim mentioned it. That's what we're talking about. And that's the lack of communication. I think Tara, she pointed out, she said, when men have a lack of communication skills. And that's what I agree about. I think sometimes we have to look a little bit more deep into our vocabulary to learn how to express ourselves even more to get our point across. But again, I go back to say, when there are men who have shown their vulnerability and have, put their trust in your trust, and there are some women who have taken that trust and really, kind of disrespected that trust and then hold that trust close to their vest. And it's hard for guys. Like, again, we don't recover the same the way women do. We just don't. Y'all had a lot of practice at it. Men, we ain't had a whole lot of practice at it. So when it hit us, it hits us hard, Emily. You hear me what I'm saying? So, but go ahead.
Okay, so and I get it. Now you just said something key, that we've had a lot of practice at it. That means that y'all have been out here doing the heartbreaking since we got so much practice, since we talking about practice. Now, Now we come into what you're giving, but you can't handle coming back on the backside. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Right, that's a whole other conversation.
Talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. But you know, I don't think that it's that we've had a lot of more practice, or that it's just that we've made a decision. It all coincides with making a decision to take a situation for what it is, which is something a man is totally capable of because he does it in other areas of his life. But when it comes to his heart and his feelings, and I don't believe that all men are taught not to be vulnerable, because you express your vulnerability in a different way, and it's called passion, right? Because if you're on a football field or you're on a basketball court and the play don't go your way, you express some emotion there. So you do have it. You guys do have the capacity for emotion. It's just the way that it's channeled. It's there, but how are you channeling it? And then whose responsibility is it to direct or steer you on where to channel it? Because you got to channel it. You know how to turn it on and you know how to turn it off. But when it comes to women, it's like a foreign language for some reason. I don't know what that is. So for me, I guess I can't really, because I've worked with a lot of men. I have a lot of men as friends. Oh, by the way, one of your UTEP classmates, Chris, I don't know her maiden name, but she was on a little while ago. Her last name is Duke now. She said you guys went to UTEP at the same time. So she just messaged me and she says hello.
Wow. Blast from the past.
Our sons went to SMU together, so that's how I know Chris. So anyway,
wow, okay.
She called you AKA Bernie. Anyway,
it's getting deep over here, Tim. We on IG. Oh my goodness. Anyway, yeah, tell my friend I said hi. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Tell Emily.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on a second, Tim. You say what to that now? Okay, hold on for a second. Let me set the room once again, because again, you know, we're coming up on this hour. We came up on this hour, but I want to make sure everybody who's coming on the IG still understand what this program is and what this platform is about. We've been doing this for almost a year now. This is the 43rd episode of Metaphor of the Love. Are we listening? Where we go and we take R&B classics, songs like I just played. We break down the metaphors of these songs and how they apply to our daily life, whether if it's past, present, or future relationships. Okay, because this platform is not about maybe you root for the Philadelphia Eagles, I root for the Dallas Cowboys, or you root for the Denver Nuggets, or you root for the Lakers, whatever. This is about finding solutions, which is one of the reasons why we're having, and I'll be talking about this toward the end of the show. We're doing the first in Dallas, Texas, anyway. This is where we're broadcasting from, the first annual social podcast party next Friday. So we got a lot of things that's occurring that night, 2 parties into one, kicking off the More Day weekend. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more in just a second. But I just want to make sure everybody on Instagram knows what this platform is about, because some people shouted out what's going on, what's the topic, so forth and so on. But this is what the topic is tonight, episode 43. Does vulnerability means love? And I stated earlier at the top of the show, because I heard this term years ago, and I didn't really connect with the term. And I'm hearing it when women say, well, you don't show your vulnerability. And when you think about the word itself, the definition of it, you're exposing yourself to a certain, or relegating yourself to a certain weak position, as we see it as men. Now, this may be a sexy thing for women, but it's not that easy for guys. It's just not. Now, we can show our vulnerability, but we got to have that trust with that other individual that you're going to take what we're trying to be, transparent with, and hold that close to your vest, and don't just broadcast that, because again, men don't necessarily recover the same, because we're men. We're built different. But go ahead, Tim.
I want to say I apologize to Emily for her for those men that she keeps running across that actually are not healthy. Because there's a healthy because that's what I was speaking to. I keep speaking to healthy and unhealthy, right? And she keeps, the way she's saying this, the way she's framing it, that there are not men that are healthy. That's the whole problem with that. She should say, okay, those men who are not healthy. That's what she should be talking about. Not that men don't. Men can, men do, actually. That song was way back in the 70s, talking about crying together. So men have been doing it, and men actually have done it. What we're saying is that most of the time it's not always taught to men because they're taught in another way and it's not framed correctly. You got to remember, a lot of women are raising men now. So, and those are men are not necessarily in sports as well too, so they don't get a chance to actually come across that. So, but a healthy man understands his whole fullness of himself. So he learns himself first. And so what we have to look at is that, back to perfection, a healthy relationship versus one that's perfect. That song is talking about a healthy relationship, not a perfect relationship. See, it's not a perfect relationship that they're in because they got problems. But it's a healthy relationship because they're communicating and then they're vulnerable to each other. And so what we talking about is getting to healthy. We're talking about it right now on this show about being healthy in your relationship, being vulnerable in your relationship, and being vulnerable to communicate those pains and things that have problems with. And so what happens if a man actually, I would say anyone actually, if you think you're talking on deaf ears, if I'm giving you points of view and you can't see it, all you do is actually redirect it and point in a different direction when I'm talking with you, because I said listening is a skill. And some of the skills that people should use when they're listening is to have the time, because you gotta go in there and actually listen to that person. That's the part of what men call respect. When I actually speak and say some things, can you go back and repeat? I did this exercise with a few women before, where I say, okay, I'm gonna talk about some stuff. Okay, you go back and repeat it and tell me what I meant by it, right? And I'm gonna do the same thing with you when we're talking through this relationship. It's gonna enhance our listening skills. Whew. I found one out of that three that actually kind of understood what I was talking about. The other two, they kept redirecting and kept going. They couldn't do it. I don't know why. They was choosing that. So it's a skill. So they have to learn it. And so what you want to do is practice with them to actually teach them. Just like we talking about what you talked about, Jabril, about learning that skill. Who does the buck stop with? It starts with you yourself. It always starts with you. That's one of my major principles. The buck stops with me. Anything I'm dealing with starts with me. I got to work on being better. Not you work on me getting better. Now you can actually influence or help. That's a blessing, right? Because that's what we do to people we care about. We help them. We influence them to healthier positions. But I have to choose it, just like you would have to choose it. You have to choose the right man that actually one is not unhealthy. A man that actually can see you and actually be vulnerable to you, that trusts you with their vulnerability. You have to be that person where that man sees that in you. He sees that loyalty. See, a man has to see that in that person. That's that man able to see that. And so in it, you have to be that, though. That's a feminine energy that's needed. A man needs to know that you have a feminine energy, that you would actually caress it, you will cultivate it, and you will help it grow. What are we talking about? Women multiplying things? You have to be that woman that multiplies, not that woman that destroys. Be that. And I promise you, you will find the right man. The ones that don't, you have the discernment, move on from them, find the healthy one, because there are plenty of them as well. The healthy one that will come in and actually be vulnerable with you as you are vulnerable with them, and you both will nurture, caress, and love and make each other stronger.
well, I think, hey man, I wish I could turn this camera around so you can see Emily's face, because she's not the one to be non-combative, so she's going to be able to respond in just a second. But let me read out something that Ms. Milk is talking about, and I think they're in a collusion together, because she stated that, and what does that have to do with women raising boys to men? That's a whole mother show, because I know I did a damn good job, and so did Emily. I told the collusion, didn't I tell you? Did Emily? Our sons are kings. Well, absolutely. But we're not talking about kings or princes. We're talking about vulnerability here, right? And if we get into the personal side of this thing, wait a minute, we're talking about vulnerability. This is what the topic is for this evening: vulnerability. When you get in, and I don't know the ages, right? But I think when you get to a certain point over time, it'll start to express itself. It'll start to come out, whether or not if he's geared towards a monogamous relationship, or if he has the pattern of not really dealing with women accordingly because maybe he's impatient, whatever the reason is. these things have oftentimes has a way of coming out. So that's the process. That's the whole process of it all. But you was about to say something though, Emily. So I just read what Miss Milk was saying. So what was you about to say? She got okay. We got time. Let me go through while you thinking about that. Let me just go ahead and read some of the other comments. If Miss Milk told me to tell you, she apologized, Tim, but she just had to put her glasses on. Now she didn't say that part of it, but that's what I felt. But what you got it now? You done figured it out? Hold on just a second. Okay. So, but anyway, let me see what my Facebook followers are here talking about as they chat. I want to make sure I get these chats in. Okay. Blessing, she stated, I'm gonna put this up here because she stated that you can't change anyone. That person has to do the work themselves. That's true.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah, I was just talking about another chat that I got from one of Facebook individuals who stated that you can't change anyone. That person has to do the work themselves. Then that's true. That's true because it all starts with oneself, and you got to want to get better so you can be better, and that we understand. But I think on the journey of life, and let me just kind of rein it in just a little bit and reset the room again because we're talking about vulnerability. I think, and congratulations to all the mothers who are mothers again, happy Mother's Day and belated Mother's Day and all that. I hope you got everything that you desire. But we're talking about vulnerability because we know that women have done such a tremendous job, and it's not always easy when you're raising young men and they go on to be successful as you would hope that they will. But life holds no guarantees because just because you start out one way doesn't necessarily mean that it ends that way. So what we try to do is look at or identify the patterns that oftentimes causes us to fail in the relationship by not skipping steps. And that's what we've done a lot of times. We skip steps. We don't perfect steps. And we think that, that's okay. I'll worry about it, the next time. And then the next time never really come. And when it does, it's the same old thing. And before you know it, now you're on relationship number 2 or number 3 or number 4 in some cases. And the pattern is just it's a constant, perpetual thing that goes on and on and on. And it seems like nobody's really addressing it, the meat of it. Because why? Normally what happens 9 times out of 10, because I got a little bit on social media, we start getting into our own little cheering sections. That's normally what happens. Instead of looking in the mirror and just having a soliloquy with oneself, being truthful and honest about where you are. Again, one size doesn't fit all. Everybody's experiences are different. But we have to be, conscious of this, of what's happening, what's going on, and try to find the right solution without, waving the pom-poms because, this is the only way I see it when there's a whole lot of doubt and information that's out there. But are you ready now, Emily, to make the comment that you wanted to make earlier? Or is your...
Yes.
Okay.
I am. I'm ready. Okay, so what I was saying was, because Tim was making reference to a healthy, his comments and everything that he's saying is geared towards individuals who are healthy. But in order to really identify healthy at one time, we all at some point were unhealthy. And there were things that we had to do ourselves in order to get to a place where we're functioning healthy in a healthy way in relationships. And which is why I'll go back to transparency. And when you enter into a situation with transparency, it opens doors for vulnerability, whether you're healthy, quote unquote healthy, or not. Because if you enter a situation and you're commanding transparency and openness, it begets the vulnerability. And you'll be able to discern without a lot of time being spent exactly what you're dealing with. Because if a man says to a woman, listen, these are my specific set of needs that I have. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I desire. A woman comes to the table. She may say, well, I'm looking for a man to take care of me. Her vulnerability equals security. So she's coming to that man saying, I want to be taken care of, which means that she has some issues surrounding safety and security. If a man has a certain list that he wants, and they're having these discussions, I just choose to have discussions early so I don't waste a lot of time. That's my philosophy. And in doing so, I don't have to go on 3-4 dates with somebody, because we've had enough discussions and we've talked enough, and I've asked enough questions and been transparent to show where my vulnerabilities are. So if I'm saying what my needs are, then that'll give a man an indication of exactly what my vulnerabilities are. If he says what his needs are, okay, well, you know what? I want a woman to, now, he could be just caught up in her physical pulchritude and all of that. And does she have hips? Does she not have hips? Is it all aesthetics for him? What are his exact needs? But then there's a larger narrative going on around saying, what does a woman bring to the table? So that's the narrative now. The new beta male wants to know, what is a woman bringing to the table? Because I have my own home. I can take care of myself. Whatever food I need, I can just order it from Uber Eats. I can Instacart what I want. I got a housekeeper to come here. I don't need a woman to come in here and do anything. So what is she bringing to the table? Well, that tells me that man has some issues with vulnerability on his own security, as far as him being vulnerable and being hurt somewhere, because now he's fixed it and made up in his mind that I can pay for what I need without having to connect socially to something that I need that's going to give me what I need anyway. I'll just pay for it. I don't have to emotionally connect to it. So that's his insecurities. Those are his vulnerabilities. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to come into a situation where a man can't feel.
Well, you know what? On all levels, I can respect what you. But hold on for a second. Hold on.
Okay.
But let me respond, because you pointed out something that I have to speak on in regards to when you say beta male, right? And we've had this conversation on this platform regarding beta male, alpha male, sigma male, delta male, and all of those Greek terminology that are oftentimes used. Most of the times, the great majority of the time, women are looking for an alpha male, but they selling for a beta male, hoping that they can goad him or urge him or encourage him or inspire him enough to become that alpha male. Because like I say, sometimes you say what you want, but you don't want what you say. And a lot of times when you're talking about an alpha male, it's a lot that comes with that. It's kind of like when I was using the analogy, and I know you just kind of joining this platform, Emily, but we talked about this probably about 6 months ago when we dealt with this particular topic. And I was given a documentary that I had seen regarding this lady who bought this wild horse, who, when the horse was born, it was a wild horse, a Mustang, and it almost died at birth because it wasn't getting any oxygen. Long story short, they had to call what they call a horse whisperer. And the man, who was very skilled at training his horse, told this woman, he said, "Why would you buy an animal like this? Why?" He said, "You had no business of purchasing an animal like this. This animal have kicked individuals, actually killed one, another trainer, and so forth and so on." So they given her the education. All she could do was just look there stunned. So I parallel that into the male, the alpha male. Sometimes we say, again, women say what they want, but you get it and don't really understand what it is that you have. And then you try to, not you personally, but a lot of women try to relegate him into something that he's not. He's never going to accept it that way. He's never going to embrace that, because in his nature, in his natural makeup, his natural nature that God gave him, he understands, even if he's not thinking about it, there's a natural disposition that he has that this is the way things is supposed to go. So either you're going to get with the program as him being the leader of that household, or you're going to say, you know what, I can't, and then you'll go out and find that beta male. So we had a long discussion about this. So Tim, I want to hold on for a second, Emily, because I know Tim wanted to respond to something that you was talking about. So I'm gonna give him the floor right now to speak towards that.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier about levels to vulnerability. And so when you're mentioning what you're doing at the dating stage, that's really not vulnerability. That's at the lowest essence of vulnerability, because you're already expressing. You're not vulnerable at that time because you're expressing what you feel. So you're not in a position of weakness when you're expressing that. You're not in a position where he can take advantage of you. So that's really not what the essence of vulnerability is at that particular moment when you're expressing your likes and dislikes. Okay, so that's easy to escape and move on from. So you definitely can move on pretty quickly in 2 to 3 days, 2 to 3 days, or 4 days, whatever that amount of time is, when you discern that actually he's not for you. And it'll be the same thing for a man doing the same thing. So when we talk about the essence, when we talk about vulnerability, it usually deals with a deeper feeling about that person. So you're not really vulnerable until you get a deeper part. And so I wasn't speaking about that on men on that level. Men are easily vulnerable in a light stage. We're talking about the deeper meaning. That's what Jabril is talking about. It's harder because it's harder when you're in a deeper stage. But I would say it's hard for most people at that stage when it really gets to they really care and feel about a person in that. And then we got to be careful about projecting. We can't project, our feelings onto another and what they feel and what they're going to do and things like that. So projection is a really tough place to be. And so we want to be in a place that actually we don't live in our yesterday and then project those things on other people. And we live in a yesterday. Because if you live in your yesterday, it's hard for me to see my vision, because you're going to keep bringing up your yesterday, which is why I kept talking about that part about a nail, hammering it on the nail for us in a relationship. So you can't live in your past. You got to be somebody who actually living in your now. And that's a very healthy thing for both male and female. That's a human being thing. Live in your now, move forward. You learn from the past and you use it as a tool to evolve, to grow. So at a certain point, yes, we all evolve, and we're not perfect beings. We're imperfectly perfect. That's how I look at it, right? So we're imperfectly perfect. So that's what makes the beauty of it. And the beauty of it is actually evolving and growing with a person as well, too. And when I make about healthy, that means having a healthy perspective on life. You don't have to be at your best. You're evolving and growing. But a healthy perspective is one who actually considers another person's feelings, looks at things from more than their own perspective, and have an ability then discern and take enough time to actually come back and say, okay, I saw it this way and I did it this way. Those is a healthy communication. A lot of times we confuse talking with communication. Talking is not communication. Talking is talking. Communication is the skills of listening, discerning, and then communicating what you understand about it, and being open to seeing a different perspective and having different perspectives and actually growing from that and evolving together. So that's what makes a healthy relationship. So when I speak about that, I'm talking about the tools that we use become more healthier. The tools that we use to actually frame and actually grow together as one. Because that's what we want to do. We want to grow together as one.
Okay. We want to grow together as one. You got a problem with that, Emily? I'm just asking. You don't have a problem with that growing as one, right? Okay. Because let me make sure that everybody understands.
No, not at all. I wasn't. No.
Okay. I'm just making sure. I'm just checking. But I want to make sure everybody understands on the platforms, because we are live on IG, on YouTube, live as well as Facebook. And what we're talking about simply this season is about vulnerability. There are so many different layers to this. That we can go into a whole lot of compartments. But what we're doing right now is just identifying this word vulnerability, because I don't want to come away even with our youth, because we got to turn back the clock a little bit, or at least how we talk to our sons or even our daughters for that matter, about vulnerability, and help our young men to understand that's not a sucker word, because there are certain things that we was taught. And I'm quite sure our fathers, was taught the same thing, because again, you got to understand the whole, causation. Every cause has an effect. And when you start talking about us coming, our ancestors coming through where they came from, through the 60s, the civil rights movement, the whole 9 yards, they had to be tough in that era. So now we in what I call the massage area, where we can massage each other's intelligence. We can massage each other's hearts. We can massage each other's vulnerability, and hopefully come to a situation where we can trust one another with that information, and not have to feel like, especially with men, that we got to always have this tough exterior to where we can only go to our partners to really pour out what it is that we're truly feeling. That we can trust that when we share this information with our women or whatever the case may be, that they won't take that and hold that against us, because a lot of women do that. And I'm not saying any woman on this particular platform, but I'm saying that's been the nature of a lot of women. And I think there's been a lot of disrespect there in that sense, because again, guys, you talk about vulnerability, man, that's hard to really to shed that tough exterior, but we got to deal with it. We got to massage it. We have to be able to address it head on, because again, I truly believe that's one of the ingredients for the 70% of all female going downtown filing for divorce, and with the African American woman leading the way. And so we have to talk about these things like this and try to find a solution. And that's what this platform is about. We ain't going to, again, one size doesn't fit all. We're not all going to come to the same conclusion or even arrive at the same time. But I also think with the conversations that we're having, conversations like these, that we can have a healthy dialogue, because I'm not a argumentative person like that. I like the dialogue. And if you got evidence, preponderance of evidence is on your side of things, cool. But if not, just be able to accept, what it is and move forward, because somewhere down the road, it's going to help you. I believe in your personal life, in your overall life, it will help you, because numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Now, you all can say the numbers are skewed. You all can say that, the numbers wouldn't be what they are if man didn't do this or men didn't do that. But the numbers are the numbers. So we already addressed the problem. So now what is the solution? I'm interested in the solution, because I told individuals once before on this platform, if you think the numbers are skewed, then let's just all collectively come together, go into one of these neighborhoods, and let's knock on the next 20 doors, and let's see how many men are opening up the doors. I think the number going to be real low, personally. I think you're going to have more women to answer that door than men. So we got to kind of get these men back to where God wants us to be first and foremost. So again, I think Tara, when she chatted that out on Facebook, she's right in a lot of it. We got to take accountability and responsibility just for ourselves, because you like Blessings also said, you can't teach anybody to be something different than who they are. They got to want to work on themselves. But at the same time, this takes there's a lot of layers to this, and it takes a tremendous amount of patience, which a lot of people don't have a lot of. People start to run out of patience, and we become impatient. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna find this next song, because we gotta get into this at the top of the hour now before we come up on the last 30 minutes of the show, because I got to be able to address some things regarding next week as well. So Tim, I'll come back to you in that regards. Let me make sure on our IG, if somebody's chatting, I want to make sure I read everybody's chats. I don't want to disengage with anyone. I appreciate y'all coming on this evening. But again, I'm just checking something on Facebook as far as the chats go. I see Blessing. She says, I'm gonna put this up, Tim, because Blessing said you make her think of John Legend. Let me see what that says. John Legend. Let me see something. Yeah, she said, Tim, you make me think of John Legend's song, Love All Your Perfections, Imperfections. Yeah, Love All Your
that's a good song.
Let me see what
Imperfect Love. But
let's see.
I want to say this to Emily real quick before you go forward. Just say, I actually appreciate and I applaud your transparency, especially at the beginning of your relationship. I think that's something that we all should practice, that transparency. And we talk about transparency on this show. We've even had a discussion of a long one, and we actually bring it back up multiple times. So we believe in transparency, and so we believe in that growth, that coming together to say exactly where we are, what we're doing, and moving forward. And so that's an important thing. And as you're going through that, you don't waste as much time. That's definitely true. And so they actually help you to discern things when you can do that. That's a vulnerability as well. And that's why I was saying, I wasn't saying it wasn't vulnerable. There's actually a lighter vulnerability to be transparent in the early stages because you can end that particular situation. And so you can make that relationship end because of actually really quickly if you're transparent and you have some things that actually the other person doesn't like, right? And so, but that's a part of discernment. We talk about that all the time. So discernment is a very important part, and it's really healthy. Another part of healthy to actually get in a relationship where there's a purpose and the intent is aligned. And so we want to be aligned with each other in order to grow with each other.
Well, on that note, we're gonna get into this next song right quick. So let's see if we can identify with this one right here.
Just remember, the doors to my heart will always be open. Tears. Yeah. Look for the light, you're lost in the night. I'll write your name on my door. If you ever need warmth or comfort, darling, I'll be here to hold you near. Oh, hurt the man, you be my security. Love is a house, you got the key. Oh, take me where I wanna be. Open up everything to your heart. Just look and you'll see. Love is a house and you have the key. Open up everything to your heart. Look in my eyes, there will be no surprise. You'll find a window to love, and I'll do anything in my power to welcome you and please you too. But deep in my heart, I know you're the one for me. Love is a house and you have the key. It's looking you'll see. Love is a house, you got the key. To your heart. I don't want to be alone. Love again. I want to make me stand on it. I hear you calling my name. Baby, you know if I answer, things will never be the same. Never be the same. Deep in my heart, I know that you're the number one for me. You got the key. Taking where I wanna be. Open up everything to your heart. There's nothing you'll see. But you got the key. Love is a house. Love is a house. Love's a home. I don't wanna be alone. Open up, open up, snap me in. I'm hungry for your love again. You got the key. Oh, it's a house. You got the key. Oh, you got the key. me where I wanna be. Love is a house, love is a home.
There it is, that classic, y'all. Love is a House by Force MDs. And what's so beautiful about this particular song right here is when the first 4 lines is a metaphoric line. The first 4 lines is nothing but metaphors. When he says, look for the light if you're lost in the night. Just that one that line right there. Look for the light if you're lost in the night. Meaning if there, if you have no, in the darkness of your own mind, there's oppressive darkness. You have no enlightenment, no intellectual guidance to get you where you want to go. Look towards the light. It'll take a person who's in a dark space to not find the light to get themselves out of whatever darkness or situation or tunnel that they're in. That's just a metaphor. So even if it relates to relationships, if you're in the night, then you have to look for the light. Or vice versa. If you got light, then you got to move out of the darkness. That's simply what they're saying. That's just a metaphor. Then the next line he says, I'll write your name on my door. Well, a door is a passage. It's a pathway that's leading you or taking you from one stage of life through another stage of life, through another passage of life. So you don't have to stay in that situation. If you're in a situation where you feel as though the individual is not being vulnerable, an individual is being insensitive, not caring, not transparent, then the door, as we say, right? What the song, I think my man Bruno Mars, they sing about that. I'm gonna leave my heart at the door. I'm kind of paraphrasing that song. But the door is a passage that leads to other things. So you got to lead the light and open up the door. And what they're talking about, because when you do that, he says, if you ever need warmth and comfort, darling, I'll be here to hold you near. Warmth and comfort. You understand? So a lot of that, when we talk about vulnerability, I know men cannot provide. But women, let me share something with you. Don't get it twisted. And we said this, I think about a couple of weeks ago, we was talking about affection. That sometimes women, their approach is, well, I don't want to do certain things because I don't know how he would take my affection towards him, or maybe he's not going to be receptive, or maybe he's going to reject my affection. No, guys enjoy that too, because it lets us know that there's a certain nurturing. So you all have that motherly nurturing, natural gift that God has put into you all. So men are attracted to that because we remember or recall at some level or some point when we were being nurtured by our mothers, right? Now it doesn't mean that we stay within those confines, but we do have some idea of what nurturing is. And if you are against doing that, then it creates a problem on both sides. See how it works both sides? It works both ways. It's not just men not being vulnerable, but also women need to be vulnerable. But I know for a lot of women, there are a lot of emotional scars, and it's real tough for them to be giving of themselves. But that's just it. We got to become patient with ourselves and get past that and try to love ourselves past the pain. That's why they be talking about this self-care and so forth. Because you can't, man, this world is crazy. And just to even be here today, to have a conversation, to talk about these things, man, we can't take it for granted, because we're trying to find a solution to all of this, right? You can go on any probably platform or social media, whatever, everybody's talking about, right? But I want to know who's offering those real solutions, because if we had time, and we don't now, because I'm really trying to get from point A to point B until we get to next week, we will be going through a scriptural thing where it relates to the abstract, to get deep into this thing. It has nothing to do with the physical aspect, but it has more to do with the abstract, the internal self, and not the physical self, the mundane self. So that's a whole nother level for another day or another topic, because what we're talking about this evening, I think, is so relevant. It's so relevant, and it's put right up in front of us, which is one of the reasons why I named this episode, Does Vulnerability Means Love? A lot of women say, no, it doesn't mean love, but it can cause the willingness to love. And that's so true. But we have to be vulnerable, and it has a lot of trust that comes along with that. And that's what we got to get to. That's what we got to talk about. So, Tim, we just got through playing the song "Love Is a House," and again, he said, "Look for the light if you want to come out of the night." I think that's so key, man. That's so key. But you say what to that though?
You know, it reminds me of when a woman wants to put her head on a man's shoulder.
Mm.
She's usually vulnerable at that time. And that man, she feels that comfort and she feels that protection. Right? And so there's a time, and then there's a time when men will lay on his woman. He'll lay on her lap. He'll put his head on her lap. That's a moment he's in a vulnerable position, and he's feeling vulnerable, and he's feeling that protection of her love for him. And so we express it in the physical, and it's so much more important as well, actually, to have it within our spirit and our soul, right? Because that's when we really feel it. When it gets past that part where just the physical part, I put my head, I put it on the shoulder, I'm laying my head on your lap, and we move past that part, we have the discussions, then we move to that spiritual part, we just know this person has it. It's not even a second thought, right? It becomes natural. And it comes even natural for somebody who's transparent for themselves, who actually is okay with, when you as a man, I'm gonna give you this example that actually Emily had mentioned earlier about when a man approaches her and then all of a sudden he's rejected. That's vulnerability in that rejection, because a lot of men don't like to be rejected, right? And so those men who actually can't handle rejection is a whole nother stable. They need to work on themselves, right? Well, I know both you and I agree with that. You got to work on yourself if you get rejected and all of a sudden you actually lashing out at somebody when you actually making that step. But that is a vulnerability for men at that particular time. That's a light one because you're not going to your deeper things, but it's still a rejection. And most women do not want to be a person who actually coming at men and getting rejected. I've seen a study where women were coming in and they was like, no, I've seen that. And there was one lady who actually did that and she didn't really like it. And her life didn't go well after she got depressed after that. As being a man and then getting rejected all the time because she wasn't used to that. Not at the length that a lot of men are, right? And so there's a vulnerability to that, and some men haven't learned how to handle that. There's some, but most men have come to a place to understand that actually, in that vulnerability, they'll be okay. And so what I was saying is that when you as a man start to get to the place of, and this is going to a deeper level, when you get to the place of it's okay to lose, because I'm gonna keep coming back, I'm gonna keep fighting. This may not be the right one, but if I don't try, it won't be nothing, right? So you got to keep coming, just like we talked about from the beginning of that win deal. But also you got to be coming when you're vulnerable. It's okay for you to be vulnerable. It's okay for you to lose in that situation if she actually rejects you. It's okay for you to keep moving forward because you're going to be all right. Because your higher place is going to keep you okay. You know that the God in you will be all right because God always has you. Sure. So it's okay to be vulnerable.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Let me put you on pause. Tim, hold on just a second. Hold on just a second, Tim. Let me put you on pause. I got to welcome Miss Winter to the stage. She wasn't with us. I'm glad to have her back. She was feeling a little on the weather last week, but she's back with her this week. So Winter, welcome. Happy Mother's Day to you. Belated to you again. Glad to see your beautiful face back with us this wonderful evening. So I know you have something to say regarding this vulnerability topic, and I wanted to make sure I can get you to the stage and let you chime in this evening with us.
Well, it's like from my personal experience, some men, when they approach women, they will approach you in a way like, man, he really likes to look in. I would love to get to know and meet you, but I know you have a guy. So, and that's kind of like a turnoff because just starting the conversation, if a real woman has a man or a husband, she's going to let that be known. But some men just cancel themselves before it even gets started, and to me, that's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
And as far as I don't know, I came in on half the show, so I'm trying to pick, sort of like where we're at, Well,
that's okay. Well, the topic is about vulnerability. That's what we're talking about this evening. For those of you all, that's okay, because some of you are joining us, and I hate it because we got about 15 minutes left of this show, this particular episode. This is episode 43, but we're talking about vulnerability. We had a lot of good, and I was definitely happy to hear that it was some really great statements that was being made regarding our vulnerability not being love, but at the same time it opens up the capability or the possibilities for love. And that's so important. But I think, like I said, we have to do a better job. I think men are being able to connect with this word because, again, we're kind of, taught different at a young age through no fault of our own, because we have to be leaders of our household. We have to be leaders of our community. And so we have to have this kind of, tough exterior at times. And I know a lot of women will say, yeah, they understand and get that. But sometimes you got to be able to know how to balance that and channel that energy and how to, compartmentalize it when you get home across the threshold. But it's kind of difficult for men too, not just women. It's difficult for men a lot of time, because when you do find someone you want to trust with that information or that vulnerability, there's a tendency for some women, not all, to take that and kind of just, do whatever they want to do with it, and then use it to, for their own devices, or negative devices, if you will. And then, like I said earlier, men don't recover the same. Yeah, I understand that women say, why, as Emily asked, she said, why come men don't recover the same? Well, for the very reason that I stated earlier, because our constitution is different. Our makeup is different. We're men. And if a man is too emotional, you'll start looking at him really funny now, because you recognize he has to be that security blanket that you can come to when a song talks about what he says. I hope the lyrics are still up. When he says, if you ever need warmth and comfort, I'll be here to hold you near. Whenever you need warmth and comfort. And I think most women, especially if you had your father in your life and he was that comforter, right? If you meet a man that matches that, and he know how to embrace you and give you that warmth and hold you and let you know, it's kind of like I was listening to, I don't know how many of y'all saw this on Instagram, Judge, I think her name is pronounced Toller. She lost her husband, I think, earlier this year, and she was describing his temperament. And she recalled, she was telling a story how she was having a real bad day, real bad day, and he rushed to the house, and she was going on and on about what had happened. He never said a word, and all he did was just held her. And then once she calmed down and he left, he said, if you need me again, I'll be there. You understand? So you saw that, right? So that's, to me, those are powerful things. Fundamentally, yes, we want to get back to those things fundamentally, but how do? Because the navigation system is not always on that type of GPS. It's not always easy to find how to get back. I think, what's the song by I think it was by my man Jaheim, How to Get Back. Yeah, we're trying to get back to that. Just like we start out one way, but we're trying to, get back to that original creation, or that original essence of who we are. And so that's the reason why we're having a conversation about vulnerability. And this is episode 43. And I asked the question, does vulnerability means love? And I think for the first time, me asking the question, we had a greater majority based on the definition. And I had a lot of definitions on Facebook, on the chats. Doesn't mean love, but it's open. It's open to love. And that's the conversation, or the dialogue, not the argument, but the dialogue that we need to have. But you say what, Winner?
I was just saying there's good vulnerability and there's bad vulnerability, because some people get taken advantage of. And then there's good vulnerability where there's everything, it's a perfect setting. He needs her, she needs him, and it comes together and it's a good thing. But I think with anything, it takes patience. It takes understanding. And because if you really want to be with someone, you'll work with them. I'm not saying waste all your time, because no one's perfect. But if two people can be compatible and grow together, that's a good thing. But nothing worth having is easy. Remember I spoke with you and I told you God's most precious things are hidden. So sometimes you got to scrape the dirt off, dust his shirt off. Sometimes he has to, wipe her skirt tail off or something like that. The most precious things God has are hidden: diamonds, pearls, girls, so on and so forth.
I'm laughing because I got my good brother here on Facebook, Curtis Blow, man, he chatted out. He chatted. I gotta say for what it is. He said, I don't know if he was talking about when I was talking, when Tim was talking, but I want to get what he was talking about. That he was lost. Yeah, he said that he was lost on something. I don't know if I said or you said. I'm trying to figure out.
No, it's a song. He said it when you were doing the song. After the song was played.
Oh, Love is the House. The song.
Yeah.
Love is the House. Okay. Yeah. Love is the House. I played Love is the House. You got the key. I guess love is not a house. I mean, Luther did say a house is not a home, right? A house is not a home. But we.
A woman makes it the home. A man can buy a house, but only a woman can make it a home. We are here for you. We are here to serve you. There's no question about that. Whenever you go off of the original blueprint, you're going to crash and burn.
You're going to crash and burn? Well, let me say this to people that's joining on us on Facebook. Those who are joining us for the first time on Facebook, as well as YouTube, as well as Instagram. You know, we've been doing this thing for almost a year, and I'm telling you, we've covered a gamut of topics, and we've had such a great time in doing this. You know, if you're new to this platform, we definitely try to find solutions. This is not about an argument, but it's about a dialogue. It's about communication, and it's about being transparent with one another. I hear, you know, the cries, if you will, and we're all huddling up in our different social groups or social gatherings. But I don't know if we're really addressing what the solution is, because I'm a numbers guy. And when I look at the numbers, the algorithms does not favor us as an ethnic group. It does not. We are the poster child for what they say is what is wrong in America. And we have to be able to address these things. So, you know, if y'all don't mind, I mean, hit the subscribe button, follow me. We do this every Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Now, let me say this because we're coming up on the last 5 minutes of the show. We're doing this in Dallas. I don't know where the rest of you all are, but we have it on Memorial Day weekend, kicking it off on a Friday. I'm doing a 2-party into one. So, or if you're in the surrounding area of Dallas, come over to the Emerald Center at 1504 Osprey Drive. That's in DeSoto, Texas, for the very first social podcast party. And what we're going to be doing is 2 parties in one. And I had a vision of this years ago, of bringing this to the stage, because ain't nobody really talking about it. We're talking at the situation, but we're not giving real solutions for it, right? So again, we're going to do this 2 parties into one. We got the live band going. We got the Four Kings band featuring my guy Chris Mitchell on sax. We got R&B singer performer Miss Samaki Lee. She's gonna be doing her thing with her brand new single, and we also got my man DJ Scorpio. You know, he goes across the country doing his thing. So we're gonna do this thing, man, starting at 6 o'clock. The show time starts at 8:30, and then we segue into the middle of the night. So it's 2 parties into one night, and we're gonna have a great time with this. And this is only the first, because how I love to do things is to make sure that I'm paying homage. I'm creating that nostalgia so we can satisfy that nostalgia, so we can continue to give back to the community and have opportunities like this so we can dialogue. So the next thing I'll be working on is definitely bringing national recording artists into these platforms, right? So I just want to share this with y'all. If you are in Dallas or the surrounding area, or you will be in Dallas, again, it's going to be May 26th, which is next Friday. This is brought to you by Titanium Entertainment, associated with Black Cotton Productions. And we're going to be doing Metaphors of Love. Are we listening? The live version, and we're taping and broadcasting live. So this goes on TNTV, www.10TV Live. We want to be the BET of the South. All right, so that's why we're looking for content in any shows or whatever a person is doing. If you want to DM me and tell me what you got going on, that's cool too, because we're looking for new content. Okay, so with that being said, I'm sorry when I didn't hear you.
What is the dress code?
The dress code is going to be stylish and classy, but you can be sassy just a little bit. We don't be too revealing now. We're going to keep it classy and sassy. Yeah, I just had a little fun with that. Yeah, we're going back. We're doing what we do. We're doing. I even got something, you know, they don't even slow dance anymore, right? You tell the young people, you know, what is a slow? They look at you like you dinosaur. What is that? Well, again, it's nothing like the human touch. Some of us on this platform, we realize and understand, especially when it comes to men. We couldn't wait for the slow song, huh, Tim? Huh, Blow? Chat it out, Blow. We couldn't wait for the DJ. He done played 10 fast songs, and now we trying to wait for that song. He gonna play that slow song so we can get together.
Y'all better play slow jam.
Well, like I said, we're gonna have it's gonna be very, very interesting. Like I said on the one of the promo, it's unpredictable. Shout out to my man Jamie Foxx. You know he from Texas, Terrell, Texas. That is. We want to send him number love and speedy recovery. But yeah, we got something unpredictable. We're gonna be doing this thing again. We're gonna look at this whole bringing back this whole nostalgia. And hopefully we get a couple of slow dances there because I'm gonna be promoting that. I will be promoting that. This thing kicks off again Memorial Day weekend on that Friday. So don't meet me there, beat me there, as they say. But again, I'm gonna close the show out now. This has been a wonderful, wonderful. Tim, let me come to you right quick, Tim, and let you get the final or get a word in, and I'm just gonna close it out how we start this thing, man.
Okay, good. We come on this show to actually to grow together, to evolve. And what we want to do is actually have perspectives. And so we want to be able to give different perspectives of how they see things. And we want to have a healthy dialogue about those perspectives as we grow. And then when we want to do that, we also want to come up with corrective behaviors or action steps that actually will bring us closer and unify us. Because our whole thing is about us growing together as a community and understanding that it takes a village. We're not in this by ourselves. Those of you who are out there who feel like you're by yourself, you are not. There's somebody who loves you. And I tell you right now, we love you. Okay? Us on this show, me and Jabril and Sherry and Deborah and all the people who come to our show, we love you.
Yeah, big
so
shout
you're
out
not
to
by
Sherry.
yourself,
Yeah,
and we're here for you. Okay, so we're gonna keep thinking of ways to keep helping our community grow, and that's what we're all about one and our family, and you are our family.
Yeah, let me echo the same what Tim just said. This is about us. Nobody had the whole thing that came out years ago for us, by us. That doesn't stop. This is about us. We don't need anybody trying to tell us. We don't need the Willie Lynch Center. We don't need any of that trying to tell us about us. We are the architects. We are the originators. All we got to do is get back and realign ourselves to what's important. That's what we're doing. We're turning back the hand of the clock so we can move forward. So on that note, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on another episode of Metaphors of Love. Are we listening? I look forward to, we're going to do episode 44, God willing, next Thursday. And then we got the big 45 in person. Again, doors open up at 6 p.m. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a great time. Like I said, this is just something something different, something new. So until then, I want you all to stay blessed, be safe. We're going into the weekend. I want to see you back here again next Thursday. Tell a friend, subscribe to it. This is about us again. We're trying to offer some solutions and talk and dialogue and have a real conversation. Who knows? Somebody may find love on here. Who knows? I might. It may happen, Blo. It might happen, Blo. I'm just telling you. So until then, I want to send y'all nothing but peace and love. We're going to go out with our outro the way we normally do it with my man, Donnie Hathaway. Love, love, love. That's what it's all about, y'all. Love. We start with love, power. We go out with love, love, love.
Mm-hmm. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it. And you're going to enjoy that party on Friday. I promise you. I promise you.
It takes so long to come to me, oh baby, and love, your love. Tell me, were you hiding from me all the time? Each time I tried to find someone to take your place, it was all in vain. No, that lips were never quite the same. No, baby, when I was kissing someone new, deep inside I was missing you. Oh, baby, you made me fall in love with you. I don't know just what I'm gonna do. Oh, honey, I looked out into empty space. All I saw was your pretty love. You can't imagine what you do to me, oh baby. and love your love. Every time you smile, it goes through me all the time. Day by day, I'm falling more in love with you. And that's no lie, cause my heart and honey, I hope to die. Cause I'm not trying to mislead you. Believe me, girl, I really need you.
Good night, everyone.
You make me fall in love with you. I don't know.
I almost had to. Woo, man. Just wait, boy. Peace and love, y'all. See you next Thursday. Peace and love, Facebook. See you next Thursday. Friday is the day.